Good afternoon, everyone. It is so great to be here. But before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we're on the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat people. It's an honor to be here today, to be among such distinguished leaders from rural communities right across this country. I also have with me my Parliamentary Secretary, Mark Saudet, the MP from Nickelbelt. And I see many other MPs from across Canada here as well. So thank you so much for welcoming us here today. I want to start by thanking you for your service to the communities that you serve, our communities. I would say that we are the backbone of our country. We represent our natural resources, our agriculture, and our spirit, as well as so much more. As leaders of these communities, you know the best opportunities, challenges, and forward-looking priorities. That's why it's such a pleasure for me to be here today, to get to speak with you, but more importantly, to get to listen to what you have to say. As a rural Canadian myself, I know firsthand the unique challenges that we face, but I also know about our resiliency. Our government has made it a priority to work with Canadians and help enable them to reach their true potential. And we recognize the important role that rural communities play in Canada. Almost 20% of our population lives in rural, remote, Indigenous, coastal, and northern communities. These communities contribute almost 30% of Canada's economic output. Over the last few months, my Parliamentary Secretary Mark Saudet and I have traveled to rural communities in every province and territory across this country. We've seen firsthand how communities are reinventing themselves to adapt to a changing world. Many are on the edge of an economic boom, while others are dealing with significant challenges to economic growth. There is a real drive in rural Canada. No one is afraid to work hard to provide for their family. And together, we are making real progress to enable the opportunities that exist for your communities. And with you, we will build upon the successes you've already created. One reason I entered public life 4 years ago was to ensure that the rural Canadian voice was heard in Ottawa. My riding is made up of rural communities along the beautiful Nova Scotia South Shore. I often say I have the most beautiful riding in the country. The people I represent fish for lobster, grow Christmas trees, manufacture car tires, and build airplanes. It's quite a diverse economy, don't you think? We are resilient, and we take charge when there are good opportunities available to us. Rural communities like mine are found right across this country. We face skills shortages and the pressure of global competition and the lack of affordable housing. Rural Canada faces challenges, and there is no one-size-fits-all solution. So when I was asked by the Prime Minister to be Canada's first Minister for Rural Economic Development, I was deeply honored, because these are issues that matter to me, and these are the issues that matter to all of us in this room today. Bottom line, your priorities are my priorities, and as a rural Canadian, I have the lived experience. I'm proud to bring the voice of rural Canada to the Cabinet table, where decisions are made that impact us all. As per my mandate, I'm working to develop a rural economic development strategy to respond to your priorities. Allow me to share some of these with you, the major themes that we've heard as we've had conversations with people right across the country and in your communities. First of all, it won't come as any surprise, reliable and affordable high-speed internet is critical to removing barriers to growth and community well-being. Believe me, I get this one. Infrastructure is aging, and it needs repair or renewal. The lack of affordable housing is preventing growth in some regions and making it hard to attract new workers. Rural communities are facing challenges attracting and retaining labor for the jobs that they need to fill. And I'd like to speak to a few of these themes briefly. First, it's clear that access to high-speed internet and mobile connectivity is at the top of everyone's list. It's easy to take the internet for granted when you have it. Canadians in big cities can start businesses online, and they have the potential for immediate global reach. In some rural communities, businesses can't even install Interac machines. I've been in stores that are still on dial-up, and you have to hope that the phone doesn't ring while you're trying to process a payment. This is not how we should be doing business in 2019. When customers have no payment options other than cash or checks, businesses lose sales. Farmers with agribusinesses, some of the most technically advanced businesses in Canada, still rely on phones and fax machines to run their operations. Fishers on wharves in my riding need access to high-speed internet to sell their catches to Asian markets. Access to fast, reliable internet service allows rural businesses to adopt new technologies which are increasingly important to the sectors that are at the heart of rural prosperity. Rural Canadians are just as driven, just as innovative, and just as ready to compete with the rest of the world. Connectivity creates all kinds of opportunities for rural Canadians to learn new skills, access essential services, and attract new talents and jobs to their communities. That's why our government is making unprecedented investments in broadband and wireless infrastructure. Through the Connect to Innovate program, we're extending high-speed internet access to more than 380,000 households in 900 rural and remote communities. That includes 190 Indigenous communities. Canada's largest telecommunications regulator, the CRTC, will soon be launching a $750 million fund to support infrastructure for fixed or mobile wireless projects. Our government is also working with our provincial and territorial partners on Canada's first national connectivity strategy, which sets ambitious new commitment to ensure that every single household and business in Canada has access to fast, reliable, affordable internet service. It will also seek to improve access to mobile wireless services where Canadians live and work along major highways and roads. This isn't just about the economy, it's about safety. High-speed internet projects are also eligible for funding under our $2 billion fund to renew the infrastructure of rural and northern communities. In addition, this year's budget commits a further $1.7 billion in new investments to extend high-speed internet services to rural and northern communities. The Canada Infrastructure Bank is now looking to invest up to $1 billion over the next 10 years to extend high-speed internet services to Canadians living in rural and remote communities. In the process, it aims to attract an additional $2 billion in private sector investment. With all of these investments, all Canadians will have access to reliable, high-speed internet. And I've heard many of you talk about the importance of addressing our labor shortages that exist in our communities. Improving broadband connectivity and renewing aging infrastructure will make it easier to attract business investments, newcomers, and help our youth stay in or return to our rural communities. We have introduced pilot projects to encourage more new immigrants to settle in rural communities. And we're supporting lifelong learning so that when people change jobs, they have the skills and the training that they need to adapt. In Budget 2019, we announced the $1.5 billion Canada Training Benefit Program, which will give workers money to pay for training and provide income support to help them pay for living expenses while they are in school. The College of the North Atlantic in Newfoundland is leading the way in this, offering online training in skilled trades. I never thought it would be possible to teach carpentry, plumbing, or welding online, but this new initiative is giving people the ability to work to support their families and upgrade their skills online on their own time. We are attracting more workers to the skilled trades by investing more than $23 million to support apprenticeship training and enhanced partnership in the Red Seal trades. When people think of housing shortages, they think of Toronto or Vancouver. But the reality is, there's a shortage of affordable housing in rural Canada. Our government is doing its part to ensure that Canadians have access to affordable, high-quality housing. Since 2016, the Government of Canada has invested close to $6.1 billion to give Canadians greater access to affordable housing. These investments have helped almost 1 million people in need: families, seniors, women and children fleeing domestic violence, Indigenous people, persons with disabilities, persons with mental health and addictions issues, veterans, and young adults. Canada's first ever national housing strategy gives an additional stable, long-term funds to the affordable housing sector, and will protect the affordability of 385,000 existing units. It will repair 300,000 affordable homes and build 100,000 new homes in communities of all sizes. In all, these measures should reduce chronic homelessness by 50% and provide those most in need with a safe place to call home. As you know, a focal point of our work as a government has been to renew our country's aging infrastructure. We have a significant infrastructure gap, and we are committed to working with you to close it. Through our unprecedented $180 billion plan, we're doing just that, and through that plan, we're driving real economic growth. This plan is benefiting rural Canada. We're making our roads safer. We're expanding our highways and building new bridges. And we're working together to prepare communities for the continued impact of climate change. And we're creating jobs. Even our investment in the renewal of water and wastewater systems are helping communities grow. With new investments in places like Selkirk, Manitoba, we're helping enable the future development of almost 750 acres of land. That means new homes, new businesses, and new opportunities to retain good workers. This shows how federal investments in public infrastructure can create jobs and business opportunities for rural Canadians. But there's always more we can do. That's why, as part of Budget 2019, we doubled the federal gas tax fund. This top-up will allow you in your community to invest in your own priority infrastructure projects. Project decisions should be up to you, the municipality. That's what our government means when we say we talk about working with communities as partners. We know that solutions that work in one rural community do not necessarily work in another. Although there are commonalities, there's no one-size-fits-all solution that applies to every rural community. Each community holds the key to their own future. I can assure you that this grassroots approach to addressing the needs of rural communities will be reflected in the Rural Economic Development Strategy. We will ensure that Ottawa does better to adapt to the needs of rural Canadians, not the other way around. Our government stands ready to continue working with you to ensure that all Canadians living in rural and remote communities can sustain their economy, improve their social and community services, and access federal programs that meet their needs when they need them. That's how, together, we will ensure that rural Canada remains prosperous and vibrant for future generations. We'll continue to create jobs and opportunities for all Canadians. We've been to your communities to hear your ideas and your solutions. We've listened, and we're developing a rural economic development strategy based on those ideas. We plan to release this strategy in the coming weeks, so stay tuned, but it's just the beginning of our work with you. Together, we will build an even brighter and more prosperous rural Canada. Thank you.